Thank you, President Aoun, for welcoming me today. Thank you to gathered families and friends, and congratulations to the Northeastern School of Law class of 2013. Well done. I have a little bit of nerves because, Kevin, this speech may use the words path and journey a couple of times, sorry. And you know, one of the things that happens, you become governor and all of a sudden you have staff. And the staff asked me a couple of weeks ago, well, what do you remember about law school and your graduation? And honestly, you know, I'm 55 years old and it was 28 years ago and I was having a hard time. But being here with all of you, I do have some memories. One thing you should know is that it's a good thing that I have staff and they drove me down here today, because I just remembered watching all of you today that on the day I graduated from Northeastern Law School, my family had had a little reunion the night before at my grandparents' house a couple hours away. And as my husband and I were getting ready to get in the car and drive up here, he locked the keys in the trunk. Thank God one of my cousins was dating somebody who knew you could climb in through the back, unscrew the seats, and go into the trunk. But I made it here just in the nick of time. I also remember well what a close-knit class ours was and how important the friendships I developed were then and are now. I was telling the crowd assembled at lunch earlier, about a month into my first year law school, I broke my jaw. And believe it or not, I was actually breaking up a fight at Harvard. That's a true story. So I broke my jaw, and I confronted that first few months of 1L unable to speak well. And where other law schools might have had an environment in which my colleagues would have seen this as an opportunity for them to advance because I was clearly hampered, my law school classmates rallied around me and made that first year possible for me. And it speaks to the kind of place we are and the importance of the kind of collaboration and colleagueship necessary to practice law, even in the midst of heartfelt and important competition. So it is truly an honor for me to be able to address commencement here at my alma mater. The experience I had and that you have had here at Northeastern is different, in my opinion, better than the experiences of people graduating from other law schools around the country. It's hard to overstate just how significant the co-op program was in my development as a lawyer and as a person. For one thing, the program brought a perspective to my legal education that can be lacking elsewhere, reinforcing that problem solving, teamwork, and cooperation are all far more important and useful in life than all-out competition. And it helped me learn that the law is about real people, real lives, not just intellectual principles. Thanks to the combination of classroom and real-world experience, I found, as you will soon find, that I was better prepared to navigate the challenges that we all face in our lives, both personal and professional. For one of my co-ops, I worked at the National Prison Project, which seeks to ensure that our nation's prisons respect the constitutional rights of inmates, just about as unpopular a group of clients as you could ever want. Some of the needs I helped inmates fight for are fundamental, basic measures to ensure their health, safety, and ability to serve their sentence free of cruelty or inhumane treatment. Other times, legal skills weren't nearly as important as basic common sense. At that same co-op, I remember one instance where a colleague who was monitoring a consent decree at a prison in Arizona found out that the inmates had been disciplined numerous times because they had started a food fight. So she investigated a little bit. It turns out that every time that the prison served canned beets, the inmates would throw them against the wall because the beets were really awful. So my colleague, who at the time had small children, suggested to the prison something that I think would be obvious to every mother, but clearly hadn't been obvious to the prison. How about you just stop serving the beets? Problem solved, right? But more often than not, the problems that I dealt with in that co-op were far more serious. I would find myself at a maximum security prison interviewing inmates who had themselves committed atrocious crimes, but who had been beaten badly by corrections officers. So I would find myself sitting there, considering the different and difficult balance that corrections officers face, their need to ensure safety, and the obligation to protect the rights of inmates. That series of interviews and other work I did in that co-op at the National Prison Project proved to be challenging at multiple levels. But it was work that helped me develop what I believe is the most valuable asset that any lawyer can have: solid and thoughtful judgment. Over time, I learned that when people choose a lawyer, they are looking more than anything for good judgment. Of course, you also need to be technically proficient. You have to be ethically grounded. And as my own law school commencement speaker told us 28 years ago, you need to have really great stamina. But more than anything, you need good judgment. And your judgment is strongest when you are able to integrate all aspects of who you are as a person and what you have experienced in life with what you do professionally. The more difficult types of experiences you have, the more exploring you do, the better your judgment becomes. Because your judgment is at its best when it is informed by your skills, your mistakes, your triumphs, your education, together, of course, with what you have learned from those around you. I am reminded when Professor Williams talked about the need to embrace your failures, if you will. I've lost elections and I've won them. And you learn as much from the lost elections as you do from the one you win. You will have failures, but you will also get better. I know that your time at Northeastern has already helped you develop that judgment and has provided you the foundation to do really great things. However, at the end of the day, it is how you use your education, your experience, and your judgment that will determine what mark you leave in your communities, with your family, and upon the world. Northeastern's special form of education is an outgrowth of its history of providing opportunity to people who might not otherwise have the chance to go to college or to law school. It was a school started at the YMCA just around the corner, aimed at providing a ladder of opportunity to the marginalized, helping Boston's 19th and 20th century immigrant communities access an education in law or engineering or finance. That education led to stronger families, better communities, more jobs, and economic growth. This progress was reflected during my own time at Northeastern. My law school class back in 1985 was 60% women, which at the time was no small feat. And by the way, today I am a member of New Hampshire's first in the nation all-female leadership team, along with our U.S. senators and representatives. But my law school class was also a diverse group in terms of age, race, socioeconomic background, and what stage of life and career the students were in. So the story of our law school is the story of progress. And now your training as an attorney has given you the skills and the responsibility to contribute toward that progress, to help us continue to march toward inclusion, acceptance, and equality, a journey that is essential for the continued success of our nation. Because as has been true throughout our history, every time we bring more people in from the margins into the heart and soul of our democracy, we get stronger. When our founders began the great experiment that is America, the notion that we could operate as a true citizen democracy while also becoming an economic force in the world was indeed a revolutionary one. The idea of being a truly self-governing people, where ordinary people could have an equal voice in decision-making, was considered not only revolutionary, but I dare to say, at least by the British, really arrogant. But it was a notion that was the core of our founders' genius. They understood that the freedom to self-govern and the ability to succeed economically were inextricably linked. There is no doubt that our nation was imperfect at its beginning and that we continue to be imperfect today. But the American mission has always been to move forward, to build a brighter future by fully including all of the people in our society. And lawyers are critical to that progress. Think of all of the landmark Supreme Court decisions that undergird our system of government and that have made lives better for the American people. Think about all the great struggles for equal rights throughout America's history and the progress that was made, sometimes simply because a lawyer was willing to take and argue a case. At each step along the way, the march to inclusion requires those who are willing to advocate on behalf of others, who are willing to give voice to the voiceless. My family's own experience has underscored the true power of inclusion and of advocacy. It was only shortly after I graduated from Northeastern, as I was working at a large law firm here in Boston, and my husband Tom was developing his career as an educator, that we decided to start our family. When our oldest child, our son Ben, was born, we learned he had serious disabilities. Today, Ben is a wonderful 24-year-old high school graduate. He is smart, funny, and according to this unbiased source, really great. But early on, it didn't take Tom and me long to realize that if Ben was going to have the opportunities that all parents want for their children, we were going to need some help. We were lucky because in the community where we lived in New Hampshire, we were able to find a network of support, including friends and families, but also professionals, early intervention specialists, a terrific public school system, and physical therapists who helped us learn how to help Ben. Our community fully embraced Ben, as they have so many others who experience disabilities. 21 years ago, a school bus pulled into my driveway. The driver lowered a wheelchair lift and Ben went off to public preschool. Sitting on my porch stoop as the bus pulled away, all I could think of was that had Ben been born a generation or two earlier, he would have been in an institution. Instead, he was going to school in his hometown, where he was going to have the opportunity to learn. And most importantly, he was going to have the chance to make friends. Ben went to school, I went to work. Tom and I decided to add to the family, and Ben's little sister Meg arrived. We felt like any other family because we were able to live like any other family. Ben's story, our story, is America's. Our story is the result of the work of families and activists who came before us and paved the way. And if you look at their stories, you'll see that at almost every step along the way, a lawyer was there advocating, helping them find their voices. So in my case, my commitment and passion as Ben's mother joined forces with my education, my legal training and experience, and I became an advocate for families like mine and people like Ben. Advocacy work that, as you heard, eventually led to my decision to run for the state Senate. While in the Senate, I learned how important my varied legal career was as I undertook my new life as a citizen legislator. I'll note that the New Hampshire legislature has 400 House members and 24 senators, each of whom earns $100 a year. So it is a true volunteer, true citizen legislature. My legal career had taken me to a large law firm, then to work as in-house counsel for a large teaching hospital, and then to a small firm representing individuals, nonprofits, and businesses. The most important thing I learned in all of these settings was that my client mostly wanted the same things. No matter where they worked or what their station in life, they had similar goals: to live their lives in good health, to provide for their families and keep them safe, to have the freedom and opportunity to move forward. I learned to appreciate and sometimes even understand many diverse points of view. And I learned that an excellent lawyer needs to know when to shift from making the best argument possible to focusing on collaboration and problem solving. And it was the lessons that I learned in my combined role of mother, lawyer, advocate, and legislator that led to my decision to run for governor. Each experience I had in life built on the last, contributed to the next, came together in ways I could never have predicted, and helped me as I worked to participate in my community and serve my state. Each of you has the same opportunity. Each of you is poised to help lead the way in the next chapter of our progress, and we need each of you to be engaged in the citizen democracy that drives us forward. Because the progress isn't accidental. The success of our American experiment relies on each generation working harder than the last to move us forward, and it relies on the sound judgment of dedicated advocates. It seems as though at this moment in time, we are witnessing another important step in our collective journey forward, as more and more states move towards marriage equality for all loving couples. And this particular progress has much of its roots right here in Massachusetts at Northeastern. In the landmark Massachusetts Supreme Court case, Goodrich versus Department of Public Health, which provided that same-sex couples have the right to marry, it was, as you heard Professor Williams refer to, it was Mary Bonato, a Northeastern law grad, who served as lead counsel, advocating for the inclusion of all people. My own Northeastern law education was critical to me as I worked with my colleagues in the state legislature in 2009 to bring marriage equality to New Hampshire. We were the first state in the nation to adopt marriage equality solely through the legislative process without the force of court order. It was a difficult battle, but at the end of the day, we were able to bring people together and make the right for all loving couples to marry a reality in New Hampshire. Because our state truly values the inclusion of all people who wish to contribute their talent, their energy, and their hard work to strengthen our communities. About a year or two ago, as I was beginning my campaign for governor, I was sitting on a plane and I was on the window seat, and the man next to me struck up a conversation. Turns out he was from New Hampshire. He recognized me, asked me about my work in public service, and then asked me if I had supported marriage equality. Now, that conversation can go a couple of ways as you're sitting on at the window seat in a plane. Well, it turns out that the gentleman next to me was a recruiter for one of New Hampshire's largest employers. And he said to me, and I really didn't expect this, marriage equality is one of the best recruitment tools I have. Obviously, it wasn't because he was just recruiting gay or lesbian individuals. So I kind of looked at him quizzically, and he told me it was because marriage equality in New Hampshire signaled to every recruit that he talked to that we were a welcoming and inclusive state. He said that's the best way to get people to come here. Every time we have extended freedoms and opportunities to more Americans, and every time we have brought more people in from the margins, as hard as it can be to do, every time we've brought them into the heart and soul of our communities and democracies, our economy and our nation has grown stronger. And that task of extending the same freedoms and opportunities to all people is the challenge that I ask each of you to accept today. I ask that you take what you have learned here at Northeastern, the skills you have developed, your good judgment, and find a way to contribute to America's progress. Find something you are passionate about. Bring to bear all of your experience and who you are, and advocate on behalf of freedom and opportunity for others. Keep our founding principles in mind, that free individuals who are full participants in their economy and their communities can address economic and societal challenges and solve problems in ways that make us stronger. If you do, ours will continue to be a success story, and we will all thrive. I am impressed today by one other thought. I am so excited for all of you here. I remember sitting where you are, though it was a smaller class, different space. I see great potential in all of you for yourselves, for your community, for your country. But I am also reminded, as we draw close to the end of this ceremony, that law school graduations have a lot of speeches. Lawyers tend to like words. As my staff reminds me all the time. It's important that you have good judgment. It's important that you use your words really well and thoughtfully on behalf of people who need you. But please don't forget that it's even more important, as corny as this is about to sound, to have an open and large heart. I am involved in a business that most people think of as unpleasant. I wish more citizens could actually see the citizen legislature I work with on a daily basis, where real people come together and try really hard in good faith to solve problems. Because at the end of the day, what you do and what I do, what the citizens of this country do together, is we test our varying opinions, we bring to bear all our life experiences, but more than anything else, politics, which in any setting, government, business, family, is about group decision-making. It requires that we figure out a way to love each other enough to move forward. You all have that capacity, and I am so proud of you. I am so honored to have been asked to be with you today, and I look forward to everything you're going to accomplish. Thank you.